On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to get through 10 news stories in the same video in the shortest possible time. So we're going to start out with Ripple launches xRapid product. This comes directly from Ripple's own blog. You can read this on ripple.com. So xRapid is one of only 3 products that Ripple Labs provides which actually uses the XRP token. This is probably why you see on CoinMarketCap they used to list Ripple as the currency name and then XRP as the token name. Now that's different. It now lists the asset name as XRP and the currency symbol as XRP. And that's because XRP and Ripple is not the same thing. XRP is the currency and Ripple is Ripple Labs, the company. So the CEO of Ripple Labs, Brad Garlinghouse, told the audience at the Swell conference recently that Ripple was not out to replace the banks. So you can read more about this official release on ripple.com and learn more about how the old banking system is still trying to take over crypto. Now, in response to the news about XRP, the XRP token actually dropped sharply, falling right through its 23% Fibonacci retracement line. Go figure. And right now it's recovering a bit. It's up by about 4% on the day. So it's bringing back some of those losses that it made yesterday. Next story. Google Chrome extensions will soon protect you against miners and hackers. So this story comes from bitcoin.com. Here's the headline. Now this story, what they're doing here is they're aiming to protect users and accomplish the protection by introducing machine learning into the process so it can detect Chrome extensions that may do malicious things like do cryptocurrency mining on your computer, known as cryptojacking. It's become a popular thing amongst attackers these days. So this is nice and all, but I was under the impression that Google were going to completely retire Chrome extensions, like remove that concept completely. And the reason I say that is because it was why Ledger felt the need to move away from Chrome-based wallet apps for the Ledger hardware wallets and instead gave birth to the Ledger Live standalone app, which has the whole portfolio manager in it and all the various coins all in one. So if you can reconcile that confusion for me, please do so down in the comments below. Are Google going to retire Chrome extensions? Because as far as I know, they were going to, but this news about them developing machine learning into the process kind of conflicts with that. Why would they do that if they were going to retire the system completely? Maybe it's an interim step. Don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Next story. Spanish hardware hacker Ricardo Reis adapts a Coke vending machine to accept lightning payments. So, sort of. This looks like a little makeshift machine that he has created himself on his kitchen countertop. In any case, a video released on his personal YouTube channel shows a countertop-sized machine which displays a QR code which he then scans with his phone and that sends a lightning transaction to the address. It's picked up within a second and then the machine starts dispensing Coke into a glass. The reason I say this is it looks like a makeshift machine because it's actually sucking the Coke out of a bottle on one side of the machine and pouring it into a glass on the other. That's not really the point. It's not meant to demonstrate the mechanics of the machine. It's more to do with the payment system and the autonomous nature of it dispensing it in response to a lightning payment. So the point here is that if one guy can do this from what looks like his own kitchen, then it proves that the current technology is more than capable of being applied to this particular use case of vending machines, which is perfect for instantaneous low fee or no fee transactions on the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Next story. The ratio of legal to illegal users of crypto has flipped from 90-10 to 10-90. So Lilita Infante, who is an agent with the US Drug Enforcement Administration, said to Bloomberg that 5 years ago, she saw that 90% of Bitcoin activity was illegal and 10% was legit. So this was in a Forbes article that I found, which you can read for yourself. And this quotes another article from Bloomberg earlier in the year. So there's a little daisy chain of sources for you. She says that while 5 years ago, 90% of Bitcoin activity was illegal and 10% was legit, She now says that illegal activity is only a problem in 10% of Bitcoin transactions. And she says this is attributed largely to the introduction of Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering regulations, which, being a government agent, I'm sure she would say that. Now, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but regulation is not going to protect consumers. It has a limited capability in that regard. And I know this because it's addressing the problem at the wrong end. If you rely on being able to stamp out the scammers faster than they can start up, it's not going to work. There is going to be an endless demand, or endless supply rather, of people trying to attack and scam people out of their cryptocurrencies. So you cannot address it from that end because it's an infinite supply. Your only option is to educate the consumers to kind of install what I call an antivirus for the mind. Whereas if the users all have some basic principles in education about how to spot scams and protect themselves, no amount of scammers popping up will win. So that's what I always say to the regulators. You should be focusing on educating consumers and protecting their minds with like a little mind antivirus rather than attacking the scammers, which is an endless and a fruitless pursuit. Next story. The highly anticipated Jintae app has been released. So Jintae is a decentralized application. This is what it looks like. Kind of looks like an exchange. I suppose it is an exchange. And they have a Medium post of their own. Jintae is here as of the 2nd of October 2018. So Jintae is a decentralized application that allows you to rent out the network capacity contained within your EOS tokens. For example, if you are a casual investor in the EOS token and you don't intend to use the network capacity that you are entitled to, then you may as well turn that into a cash flowing asset. And you can do that by renting your network capacity out to a developer who doesn't want to tie up all their capital when they just want to test something out on the EOS network, right? So they would have to tie up their capital by buying a bunch of EOS tokens and then selling them later. Better just to rent them off you. So the first thing I did was to go to eos.jintae.io to try it out for myself. But unfortunately, I was greeted with a message saying that it was down for maintenance and to come back later. Not a good look, because making this kind of announcement then causes people like me to talk about it in front of thousands of people. And then that's kind of leaves them with egg on their face. So not a good look there. Next story. Coinbase could be on the verge of being valued at over $8 billion. Oh my goodness me. I found this story on Cointelegraph. Now, how we got to this was based on some investment they are negotiating. So Coinbase is negotiating an investment of up to $500 million. That would be $250 million used to buy out existing investors, and then $250 million of new cash coming into Coinbase so they can expand their operations. So a $500 million investment based on the size of the company right now, that's what would put the valuation at around $8 billion. Not bad when you consider Coinbase was valued in 2017 at $1.5 billion. Now this is really interesting because to me, it proves the point as to where the real money is. The real money is in building things that provide value to the crypto community and not so much in speculate on the tokens themselves. I mean, building valuable infrastructure is arguably a much safer investment, since when you consider Bitcoin's value has dropped 70% in the last year. Meanwhile, the value of Coinbase has multiplied 5.3 times. So think about that. There's no wonder that so many people are vying to invest in Coinbase because it's a safer investment and you get the benefit of the growth of the crypto space without the risk of the BTC asset itself. Next story. CFTC Chairman chrisjsconey does not believe crypto regulation will hold back the United States. So check this out. I found this one on a few places. I found it primarily on toshitimes.com, and I've highlighted a couple of things here that I want to talk about. So the yellow bit, actually. In an interview, Mr. Giancarlo disagreed with the idea that if the US does not sufficiently encourage crypto innovation on US soil, then those companies will move overseas. That's generally the argument. If you over-regulate, it'll become too strict, and the big innovative companies will move elsewhere, and the United States will lose that tax revenue, those jobs, and all the rest of it. So Chris Giancarlo disagrees with that on the basis that the US is already ahead of the world, he says, in terms of Bitcoin derivatives, evidenced by the products you can buy and sell on the CME and the CBOE, such as futures contracts. Then, going back to the article again, the orange bit that I've highlighted here, he did say that he did think that cryptos are here to stay, even if they don't end up rivaling the dollar. But like I said earlier on, as a government agent, of course he would say that. Next story. A Bitcoin transaction has been sent via a mesh network using a radio signal. Now this comes from Bits Online. Here's the headline. Bitcoin testnet transaction sent via a mesh network. This one I found incredibly interesting. So using a small radio transmitter pair, sender and receiver, called a GoTenna mesh, your smartphone can broadcast a Bitcoin transaction even if you don't have a cell phone reception. So this GoTenna system is meant for climbers, hikers. If you end up in the wilderness and you're stranded, you don't have a mobile phone signal, you can use this system. But that also means you can use it for other things like Bitcoin transactions. So this basically works by sending a transaction via radio to the nearest person with a GoTenna receiver, so they can then continue to relay that transaction until you find a device that has an internet connection and can actually get to the Bitcoin network. Even if that takes like 6 or 7 hops, eventually you're going to hit a device that does have an internet connection, even if you're in the middle of the Amazon jungle, and then they can broadcast that transaction to the Bitcoin network and then report back to you via those hops. So this works as long as another GoTenna device is within 4 miles of your location. So you only need one person within 4 miles, and then they only need the next person to be within 4 miles, and so on. So you could daisy chain people, 3 miles apart. You only need 4 hops to travel 12 miles. And then, if that person within 12 miles has an internet connection, they can broadcast the transaction to the Bitcoin network, get the response, and then send it back through that daisy chain 12 miles back into the middle of the Amazon rainforest. So this is the kind of thing I like, because it's another step towards a level of resilience for Bitcoin where it'll get to the point of being completely unstoppable. Like destroy the internet, won't matter, satellites, radio signals, mesh networks. There'll be so many ways that transaction can get through. It will be completely unstoppable. So shout out to the developers of the Samurai wallet, because they're the guys that have been helping to develop this. So excellent work. Next story. The recently discovered and now fixed bug in the Bitcoin codebase is starting to be exploited in other coins that have used the same Bitcoin codebase. So this story comes from CoinDesk. The exploit is in Pigeon Coin, and they've used a nice fantastic photo of a confused looking pigeon who seems to have found a bug in his code and doesn't know how to fix it. So as you may know, there was a bug recently discovered in the Bitcoin codebase that could have allowed an attacker to exploit the inflation within Bitcoin, basically to print new coins and have possession of those coins. Now, the Bitcoin developers have already patched this issue, and the Bitcoin community is installing that patch, so it fixes the problem. However, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of other cryptocurrencies that have taken the Bitcoin open source code base and then launched their own coins under different names. So the plus side of all this crypto stuff being open source is it lets people experiment with it, it allows people to innovate, it allows people to inspect the code for flaws and so on. But many of the developers who are just downloading this code from GitHub, they don't really understand it and are therefore vulnerable to flaws in the code that they have copied from other competent developers. So that's one of the downsides. As an example, Pigeon Coin, which uses the Bitcoin codebase, it remained vulnerable to this bug because it used the flawed version of the Bitcoin code. The developers of it didn't apply the patch or the fix to their version of the code in time, and then an attacker has exploited this by increasing the supply of Pigeon Coin by 25%, and they have then taken possession of those new coins. Now, granted, it's only $15,000 worth of crypto. However, it's increased the supply of Pigeon Coin by 25%, which is pretty catastrophic for the value. So this is also one of the downsides of announcing these security flaws to the community. It also lets attackers know where the opportunities are, so they can just like look for the lowest hanging fruit. The chances of attacking Bitcoin are small because it's patched quickly, but you can go for the weaker, the weaker links in the chain like Pigeon Coin and any other crypto that uses the Bitcoin code base that hasn't yet been patched. Next story. Block One is considering stepping in to prevent voting cartels amongst the 21 leading EOS block producers. So this also comes from the Toshi Times. The headline is exactly that. Block One, it says here, Block One steps in to prevent voting cartels. I've changed that myself to Block One considers stepping in to prevent voting cartels, because as far as I'm aware, it's not actually happened yet. I did a video a little while ago saying like EOS whale incoming, because Block One on their own blog said they are going to begin using their 10% of the token supply to start participating in the voting mechanism. So this news story, if you're not already aware of it, there is a spreadsheet floating around that allegedly reveals that there is the structure of a cartel of EOS block producers who are colluding to like vote for each other, and in some cases buying votes off each other. Now, if this is true, then the culprits are in clear violation of the EOS Constitution, which is a legal document which they signed when they registered as an EOS block producer. Every EOS transaction has to re-sign and re-agree to the EOS Constitution. That is the law of the land. Now, Block One, the developers of the EOS IO software, have 10% of the token supply at the time when the network was launched anyway. So it was 100 million tokens. That's now slightly less than 10% because of token inflation. But Block One have expressed their intention to use their 10% token supply, their 100 million tokens, to vote in their best interests, as they've put it. Now, to my mind, that would be voting in a way to punish bad actors. Now, while some might cry foul at that, I say that all Block One would be doing is, in this case, objectively and mechanically enforcing a punishment on those who broke the law. That's it. Without a rule of law, those 100 million tokens that Block One own won't be worth anything, right? Which is why punishing cartels is not only enforcing the rule of law of the EOS Constitution, but it's also acting in Block One's own interest, even if they didn't care about the law. So having a rule of law blockchain, as EOS is known as, is one of the key things that will keep faith in the network and faith in the token itself. So that's all I've got for you today. If you like this episode, go ahead, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Please leave me a comment below with some feedback and get subscribed. And if you would like to support the Cryptoverse and help the ongoing production of this kind of content, please head over to thecryptoverse.show, click on this big blue button here that says support the show, and become a patron. That will support the show, help the production of the content, and make sure that this crypto revolution carries on moving forward. If you want to follow me on the social networks, you can go to thecryptoverse.show, and a bunch of social networks are listed on there. But that is all I've got for you today, so I'll be back with the next episode of the Cryptoverse. Until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.